I'm gonna get into a vulnerable stage, a dark, soft spot that you guys don't see because you guys are used to seeing us as beasts and animals in the ring. Um, but this all comes from my mana and my heart, and the reason I am coming from this spot, this place in my heart, because I owe it to my people, my fans, my sister, and myself. Um, and today I'm speaking for every woman that came before us and every woman that's going to come after us. And I have so much respect for all the girls who reached out to me and my sister the last couple days. I don't even know how long it's been. It feels like it's been a whole year. But respect to every girl who reached out to us and just gave us confirmation and let us know that, yeah, it's okay. Speak your truth. We stand with you. And these are girls who came before us. And these are girls who are still in the locker room. So just hearing that gave me confirmation to even come up on here and speak my truth.
We all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
What you just heard was the statement issued by, can we still call them the Tonga Twins? I mean, for the lack of a new name, I mean, they've gone by the MK Twins, but since we know them as the Tonga Twins, we'll continue to refer to them as that. But what you just heard was a statement done by the Tonga Twins on their YouTube channel pertaining to their departure from WOW, Women of Wrestling. We will go into the entirety of that. There will be another clip to be played, but in the interim of that, this is Mr. Green. You are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling podcast, and the WOW review that will be attached to this particular podcast episode. But of course, we got some news and things to go through before we get to that point. First off, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and allowing me to talk with you a little bit about the world of wrestling, particularly the world of women's wrestling, and I guess the hot button topic that has been up until this point has been the departure of the Tonga Twins. So regardless of how you have perceived their departure to take place, whether that be they were fired, whether that be you can't fire us, we quit, or some combination thereof, the end result is the same. They apparently are no longer working with the company, and they are on their own and trying to relate whatever it is that took place during that time. We're going to hold off on that just a second. And before we go any further, let's jump into the news, views, and updates and see what's happening there. And then we can come back around to all the good stuff that's going on. Well, I don't know if it's good necessarily, but all the stuff that's going on in WOW as of the moment. We can try to start off with some exciting news. Well, first off, I don't know if it'd be exciting for you, but we now know who the king of the king. I meant because it's a king and queen premium live event. I can't say pay-per-view anymore. We now know who the queen is, and it is Nia Jax. It's somewhat considered convenient that she managed to get this kind of screen time once her cousin popped back up to WWE, but you know, it's good to know people in high places, I suppose. We also know that Mercedes Moné did in fact win the TBS championship from Willow Nightingale, which former Wild wrestler, by the way. Of course, I don't know if that really helped her in getting into AEW, but again, that's neither here nor there. That, of course, keyed off a turn, if you will, from Chris Statlander. She says she has, as of this recording, explained why she turned on Willow. Of course, you can find all of that on AEW television. But the big news that has kind of set fire to women's wrestling in the last couple of days is Jordynne Grace appeared on NXT television holding the TNA Knockouts Championship. That's right. We have another crossover waiting to happen. And I know this is, this is brand new for some people out there. I mean, it's going to be new for some. For people like me, it is a rarity. It has happened in WWE. That we cannot say that the history of WWE does not show that this is taking place, but we can say that it has not happened in a long time, probably very likely due to the management, we'll leave it at that was in control of WWE at this point, or at that point. But what we have now is we've had a little bit of buzz that started to kick around WWE, or specifically the NXT brand, because of this. Now, we know NXT and TNA share a similar audience demographic. It is not as broad in casual viewers as you would get in a Raw or a SmackDown. And it's funny because it wasn't all that long ago where there was a similar question that got brought up to me about, hey, there should be I should say a question, a comment that, WoW should do some crossover with stuff. But, this is a prime example of when and where a crossover is appropriate and will do good for all parties involved. Here you have a situation where I was like, as I've thought about it and sat and analyzed it, I can't really see a lot of downside to it. And I know there's some people like, well, crossovers are great. They should happen all the time and this, that. Well, as a fan, we love them. And I can fully admit that. I like a good, champion versus champion match. I'm a mark for a champion versus champion match. I am going to watch the Battleground pay-per-view / premium live event solely because of this. Jordynne Grace taking on Roxanne Perez. I am going to be looking at it solely because of that. Because how often do we get that? Now, the WWE has done it, of course, over the course of some decades, years. They've had crossovers. They've had their champions and people go down and appear in other places. And like I said, this is probably one of the more well-rounded arrangements that you can get. On the one hand, NXT is not what it used to be. There was a point in time during the black and gold era when Triple H was running it, where NXT was the talk of the wrestling world. It was the super indie, as some people called it. And they had a lot of buzz. Now, granted, this is before AEW came in and kind of stole their thunder in those first 2-3 years. But for a good while there, it was cooking. It doesn't have that anymore. Not that there isn't good talent there. It just doesn't have the buzz that it once did. Having another name that audience, that crowd knows pop up on their program like this, that's going to create some buzz. So it does good for NXT there. Much like back in the day when they would have Bobby Roode just be at ringside all of a sudden, and it was like, oh my God, it's Bobby Roode. You know him from such and such. Nakamura and whoever else that they had just appear, and the audience knew who they were because they were plugged into that level of wrestling. So Jordynne Grace being there, big thumbs up for NXT. It's going to be a big thumbs up for Roxanne Perez. Because regardless of the fact that she's on a more watched television program, she hasn't established herself as much as Jordynne Grace has quite yet. So it's going to be good for her. It's going to be good for the TNA brand. Because whether they win or lose, and I do not expect Jordynne Grace to walk out of there as the NXT Women's Champion, the brand of NXT is going to get additional exposure on WWE's dime. This will be the second time that they got the opportunity to do that, and bravo to them. It is like a win all the way around. Never mind the fact that this will probably open the door for WWE talent to come down to NXT and possibly challenge the other way around. That is going to be something else. So, I mean, you've got a lot of upside to this. Whereas it's not that way all the time with other things. Like, I'm sure somebody out there is like, well, all they got to do now is do a crossover with AEW. That'd be great. That's a case of I don't know if either side has anything to gain off of having the AEW WWE crossover. Here, TNA and WWE, it works. They both have something to benefit. They both have something to gain off of that. So I am most definitely looking forward to this. Of course, Jordynne Grace sat down and she had an interview with Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful. And she talked about exactly how this unfolded, where it was going on. And I'm going to read a little bit of the transcript here. Not going to go through the whole thing, but let's go through it just a tad bit and see how this came to be. This is Jordynne Grace talking about the companies having worked on this for a couple of months. They've been talking for, I want to say, a couple of months. They were just trying to figure out the right timing. Maybe 3 weeks ago. They had talked about wanting to use me. Then it snowballed from there. I didn't know that I was going to be doing NXT appearances at first. Originally, they had asked if I would be available for Battleground. Oh, cool. Oh, that's cool. Then it snowballed to, we want to reintroduce her. So I ended up doing NXT appearances. WWE is very different from TNA in that they book travel last minute. I didn't hear anything until Sunday night. The travel lady messaged me, we need you for NXT. I didn't want to bother anyone, but I didn't think it was happening anymore. They were going to bring her, Roxanne, back 5 minutes before the segment happened to see who it was. She was kind of frustrated, and I think she was almost being petty about it. You know what I don't want to know now? I'm going to find out when everyone else finds out. She just decided to not see me. Grace talks about arriving 30 minutes before the segment started. This is her talking about being kept secret. This is the next statement. That was crazy. That's not something in a positive light you would hear WWE fans chanting in a million years. They were so good about keeping it secret. They had the doctors come to my hotel room to do my physical and blood work. They had me come late, like 8:30, maybe 30 minutes before the segment. They had a parking spot reserved, and someone came out and ushered me to the back. They didn't have me go down the hall. It was just the first door to the left. As soon as you come in, they had a reserved sign. So there we go. She's talking about the differences between dealing with time in WWE, dealing with people in TNA. But again, the end result to this news is that it is a big win on both sides. If you've listened to this, you've heard me speak glowingly about TNA over the last couple of weeks, and that I've enjoyed their their app again. I dropped out of it for a while, but I got back into it and I've started seeing the matches. I started enjoying the events that they have. I am very much looking forward to the potential, not saying that it's going to happen, to the potential that one of the WWE superstars could show up on TNA's television and at one of their events and challenge Jordynne Grace in return. Can't you see Shayna Baszler, Roxanne Perez, Natalie Neidhart? Her contract's about to come up. Wouldn't it be great if she just showed up there just as something to hold her over until she goes back to WWE, because we know that's where her career should be ending. There's a lot of opportunities there. Never mind the fact that there are reports now going on. This is the next topic. Never mind the fact that there are talks about women's mid-card titles for both brands, the Raw and SmackDown brands. We know that there's a mid-card title that is now being instituted in NXT. Of course, there are reports that are going out now that are saying that there's a very good chance that we will see a women's mid-card belt on both brands. I don't know if that's something I'm overly excited about, but on the other side of that, I can say that they have enough talent across the board to make it work if they really try to. My problem is that outside of the primary women's championships, they do not seem to have a strong focal point to stick to. I am concerned. It would be nice for them. It would be nice for some of those ladies there, especially the ones that don't get a lot of airtime or whatever. It would be nice for them to have something else that they can shoot for and go after and whatnot. I just don't know if I am fully convinced that they have the ability to make this thing work. I mean, look at the tag team championships. We're still working on that. We're still working on the idea that the women's tag team championships, let me be clear. We're still working on the idea that they can rehabilitate those things. So to add another set of championships into the mix might be a little rough. Last thing, getting back to Jordynne Grace, who apparently is the name and the talk of the town as far as women's wrestling is concerned, is that she has issued an open challenge at Against All Odds. How about that? This will be, if that goes through, if Jordynne Grace appears at TNA, I'm sorry, I was given the wrong thing, but if I meant TNA, I was in my mind going with AEW, but she's issued an open challenge. And again, if that goes through, who would pop up and take that on? That will take place after Battleground. But as I just said, the options there, they aren't endless, but there's a whole lot of them. I mean, would they stop somebody from AEW from coming in? Would they stop somebody from MLW from coming in? If they wanted to work out an arrangement to be there, I'm saying. They definitely got something going on with WWE, and I know, typically speaking, the WWE does not play well with others, generally speaking. But we got an option here. We have an option. It's an exciting time. I'll leave it at that. It is an exciting time for them. So now that we've gone through that, I think we can rotate back around to the Tonga Twins and the situation that is going on in the Wild currently. As you heard their audio clip, they explained some of their issues with WoW, and again, I'm going to leave the link up. I'm going to try to leave that in so that if you want to hear this, you can hear it in full. And I suggest that you hear it in full if you are unclear about what their motivations were, what the issues were, because I'm only giving clips here. There you can listen to the entire thing. It is about a 30-minute video, easy to watch, not a difficult watch at all, but it is emotional. It is an emotional video that they have posted up. And let me just say, for the benefit of people within potentially and outside of WOW, this is neutral ground, this podcast. This is neutral ground as far as any sort of stance. We're not taking any stance on who did what and who's right and who's wrong. I felt like it needed to be said, or needs to be said, that because one is right does not instantaneously make the other one wrong. What we heard before the video of the Tongans, or at least some post before the video of the Tongans, was that they were fired and that they had some backstage issues. We'll call it that. That very well may be true. If in all honesty and in fairness to the people that put that up, don't go into their names now. I'm sure it's very easy to find. They didn't hide it. But in fairness to those posts and the people that felt that way about the Tongans and Vicky Lynn, that could very well be true. It could be true that they were rude to somebody backstage, or bullying somebody backstage, or aggressive with somebody backstage. All of those things could be true, but it does not discount the idea that somebody within WOW's management, a new commentator, as they said, may have done or said something that was unsavory. All those things can be true. What I will add to that is that if that is the case, if this is a person that was there that just did something that rubbed them the wrong way, or rubbed a couple of people the wrong way, because the way that they explain it to make it sound like they aren't the only ones that had some issues with that, but some other people haven't spoke up about it. If that is the case, I would really think that this is something that the participants of the WOW roster should amongst themselves address. I doubt that it'll happen, but they should address it. And I don't just mean with the active working girls too. I mean, like even with the Tongans and Vicky Lynn, some of that's got to get put aside, and somebody needs to mediate that. Because I still stand on the idea that if that were the case, let's just say that is true, and then we'll go to the audio clip. If that were the case, that the Tongans or anyone else, let's not just drop it on them. Anyone, if anyone was in a position where they allowed whatever that they bullied, then the management needs to be held accountable to that. If they allowed that to take place, management needs to be held accountable to that. And this is not the first time that they've had some sort of accusation as far as not taking care of things or nipping it in the bud when they had the opportunity to. It takes me back to the whole thing with Tessa Blanchard. Now, I'm not defending her in the least. So let's be clear. I am not defending her or her behavior in the least. I will say that it is alleged behavior because I was not there. And I'm certainly not going to say, well, she was right and she had the opportunity, the right to yell or put somebody down verbally or whatever the case may be. But I'm sure there's a certain amount of frustration that takes place in every locker room. And they can't treat it like a cast of actors because they don't work that way. regardless of how they try to present it, they're wrestlers. And this is a wrestling locker room, and there's going to be alphas, and there's going to be issues and things that people are going to complain. And like I said, using that Tessa Blanchard thing, remember when she was becoming the talk of the wrestling world for all the wrong reasons? You remember that? When she was getting noted for having a bad attitude and having heat and what have you. WoW didn't do anything about that. Matter of fact, WoW went the opposite direction and they doubled down on Tessa Blanchard. They had t-shirts made about her and her nuclear heat. That's what the shirt says. It's a mushroom cloud from nuclear fallout with a diamond in it. And it says nuclear heat. So you can't have a shirt like that and then turn around like, oh, well, we got to fire you because, you got too much too much heat on you. You knew that. And I don't think that this is a case of things that were unknown by the management. Especially when I hear that's why I said the last time. Especially when I hear that someone had brought it up. So at the very least, WoW has skated by on this information at least once. That's at the very least. When someone says, hey, I quit because these people were not trained and I got hurt. And that's something that you bring up to the management and they're like, all right, well, then see you later. Then they can't make claim on that, well, we didn't know. Somebody knew. They just bypassed it. They just moved on. So that goes back to the thing that I said. If I were making any suggestions to the WoW roster, that's something that should be talked about amongst the girls and what they want and what they don't. But you got to be willing to take the brunt of it if it happens. If they choose to get together and talk this thing out and approach management about it, which again, I doubt this will ever happen because the history of this in wrestling is never good. When they want to stand up to management, is never good. Never works out. And I don't think it's going to work out any differently here. But if that were the case, like I said, in a perfect scenario, they should be getting together and they should be talking this thing out. What was the problem? And if there was somebody who got bullied, then you address it there. And get all that out your system. Because whatever HR department that they have, and yes, I was told that there's an HR department in WoW. Whatever HR department they have in WoW, it clearly did not help this situation. And one of the things I used on the last podcast, I used a clip that took place over a decade ago with the Phantom. And she talked about how easy it was just to cut her loose. That it was an easier thing to let them go rather than to deal with them. And I don't know if that's changed drastically. So anyhow, let's move ahead and let's put on one of the clips here that I think was a little bit interesting. Largely because it's another thing that I don't think has changed a great deal in WoW. That is the twins. They're talking about working there. But they're also talking about not really working for a significant sum of money. And I say it that way because the way that it was phrased in the audio originally, it was, we didn't, they said something to the fact that like we didn't get paid. But then the other one of the other twins came in and said like, well, almost like we didn't get paid. So what I'm going to assume out of that statement is that they got paid. I don't want to spread anything like they didn't get a check. They got paid, but they probably did not get paid enough to justify working for WoW singularly. So let's take a moment and play this clip, and we'll come back on the back end of that, and we'll continue this discussion.
Once we spoke up about one man in the locker room, everything was switched up on us for whatever reason. I just want to know why. We didn't have no explanation. It was, like I said, false statements about everything that we're doing wrong on a social media, that all we've done was promote this company for the last 2 years. We gave our heart. We gave our heart to this company. That's all we've done is promote this company. We're in character. There's no bullying when you're in character. This is a wrestling. This is wrestling. Everyone knows wrestling. So we have no answers. We know why. We just have no answers from management on why, the real story.
Right. So, like we said, everything shifted against us once we spoke up about the new commentator. Once we spoke up, it took them 5 days. Was it 5 days or a week for them to think about any excuse in the book to put and pin against us? But I don't get, if that was the case, why weren't we given a warning? Why are there still other people there that has done worse? Like, make it make sense. The math is not mathing. And now that I got all these emotions in a way, I'm about to spit straight facts. Because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
And I'm not sitting here to bash any of the women that are still there in the locker room. Neither am I trying to bash any of the past, but I'm standing up what's right and what's right and what's wrong. And yeah, I'm sure it's others who feel the same way, but I'm not going to speak on them. I'm going to let them speak for themselves.
It was never about no money. We did the first 2 seasons for this company for basically free. And I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. We did this for free.
Damn near free.
Damn near free. We have kids. We have our own family. We have to feed our kids, right? You go out and do things and you come back home. You're supposed to bring food to the plate, right? That wasn't the case. No, because we love this company. We sacrificed a lot before we even got into the company. We knew what we were going to do. We knew we were going to miss funerals. We knew we were going to miss birthdays, weddings. That was what it all came with, and we knew that. So the fact that it was never about money. And then the loyalty for this company we had, it was all loyalty we had. I'm on TV and it's embarrassing, but I love this company that I'm on TV and I'm broke. I'm on government support. Yes. And I'm not ashamed. I am on government EBT for my kids. That's how I feed my kids. So for a company to come at me and try to put my name down, my culture, you're putting my culture, you're putting my family, my kids, the people I go home to and I have to live with. So you think about that the next time you want to put my name in your mouth.
That was a audio clip from the Tonga Twins again. This is currently up on their YouTube channel. This was live streamed a couple of days ago as of this recording. And this is in their own words, part of the issues that they faced while they were in WOW. And lastly, to add on to that, I hope I can find this. I did an interview with April Littlejohn. Now, some of y'all may not know her by her actual name, but her wrestling name when she did it was she worked under the name Riot. And I maintain that her interview with me about WOW was probably the most singular, in-depth interview that anyone has ever given about WOW and how it functions in and out of the ring. She said to me years ago that there was not a single person that was on that roster who did not have a secondary job. that was her talking about WoW from 2001. And I would be hard pressed to believe that it has changed much. It sounds good when you're signing up for it, especially if you live out there, because you ain't got to worry about traveling, lodging, and whatnot. But it sounds great to have like $3,000 to $5,000 over the course of a weekend, unless that is the only time that you get the check. Now, if they get multiple checks, that's another thing. But if they only getting it that weekend and you got to stretch that out over the course of 3 months, that might not be as nice. But this is just assumption. I've not asked anyone about how the pay scale on their works. I've not asked anybody how they receive their money. That's their business. I'm just saying that if it is a case of what I was told then and it is still applicable now, that could very well be an issue. So I'm going to take a moment. Let me see if I can find this audio. Let me see if I can find Little John saying that. And if I do, then we're going to plug it in right here. This should be Riot, a.k.a. April Little John, talking about the pay structure in WoW.
We got a set rate, and then we got more if we did a match and, you know, how many matches we did. But, you know, I mean, it's different. It's not like in the union for television, there's all these rules and stuff, but wrestling kind of slipped through the cracks because it was considered an athletic event. So we, you know, I don't know how WWF works, but back then we weren't making a ton. It wasn't life-changing money, you know. I mean, we didn't make that much.
Now let's talk about, since you bring that up, let's talk about the pay scale, the money. Now I don't need specifics because we don't have to get off in anybody's business. Sorry for people out there listening and saying, damn it, why didn't you let her talk about it? But we don't need to go off into the total specifics. But here you just said, okay, it wasn't life-changing money, which a lot of times, you know, surprise, surprise, wrestling doesn't do that. But my question is, how exactly could WoW slip through the cracks of that when, yes, true, it was an athletic event, but on the outside looking in, it looks primarily as a TV show that happens to be wrestling, opposed to stuff that I shoot where it is wrestling that goes to TV.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is like, and yeah, I don't know if we were told the truth or anything. A lot of us were young, and I mean, there was some girls that were smarter than that, but I was under the understanding that it's an exemption, and so they don't have to pay like normal union rates. It was, you know, like you got paid bumps and stuff like I said, if you got a match and you did a match, sometimes I did 2 matches, so I would get paid for each match. And then you got paid an hourly rate when you were training. Like I said, we only trained a few hours a day, so it wasn't enough to feed you. You couldn't just do that. We all had other jobs. Mm-hmm. You know, I was working up at Six Flags, the Batman and Robin show during the time, and I had another, I think, delivery job for a restaurant at the time. And, you know, we were all doing other things because it wasn't enough.
All right, and we've had that. So I've tried to provide as much information for you as I can. Again, I will encourage you to listen to the entirety of the Tonga's video. If I have remembered, then you should have a link available to you so you can click right over to it. But it is as listed as you see it on the screen. If you're not watching this on YouTube and you're just listening to the audio version of it, then the video that you're looking for is from the Tonga Twins with a Z, and the title is called Tongans Make a Statement. Again, a live stream video. Should be the only video that they have on their channel, quite honestly. I don't think they did a lot of other things. And you can go in there and you can read some of the comments that's still there, because as a live stream, they still had the top chat and they got comments down at the bottom. I will, you know, now that I've mentioned the comments, just as a sidebar, I know that they have a lot of fans out there, and there are people who genuinely love and regard the Tonga Twins as, top tier talent. But I think it needs to be said that, every Tongan does not need to go into the bloodline. Every Samoan does not need to go into the bloodline. Yes, it's an easy thing to do, but the number of comments, hey, y'all should join it with Nia Jax. You should be part of the bloodline. They need to call Fatu, and there are other things that they could be doing with themselves. And I know it is all in love that they say that, but look, they have other venues rather than to just immediately be part of another island dynasty. That they can do something else. Does not have to be wrapped in around being Samoan and Tongan. They can imagine this. They can go off and they can have a personality now, because they damn sure didn't have any WoW. I'm sorry. As much as they defended WoW in this video, as much as they hashtag F WoW, they defended WoW in this video. We love this company, but that company did not do them any favors, in my opinion. They put them on national television, but we didn't know anything about it. Like, this is the most that I've heard the Tonga Twins talk in any given time. The 30 minutes that they spent here on this video probably is more than they did in 2 years worth of WoW, of speaking. If anybody can prove that different, I am all ears. But anyway, no, that whole join the bloodline, call Leia Tapa, Lady Tapa, and y'all should be with Nia Jax, and join up with Trinity Fatu. Yeah, all of that's nice, but they can do other things. And not for nothing, the amount of, hey, you guys should just go to WWE. I'm sure if it were that easy, there would be a mass exodus off of multiple wrestling companies if it was just as simple as, I should go to WWE, so therefore I'm going. If it was just a case of, yeah, you could just go just because you want to go without having to, do anything, yeah, there would be a lot of people that would be going. And also, and I'm not trying to discount this person's opinions about the Tonga Twins, but there is a statement that was like, you're already one of the greatest female tag teams, top 5 of all time. I find that very difficult to believe. I like the Tonga Twins, but again, I don't think WoW did them any favors. I don't think they showed them as being at their best. I don't think they had to be any better than what they were, and quite honestly, with the exception of a handful of people in that promotion, the bar is not that high. I mean, it just isn't. You got some players in there that can work at a higher level, and that's nominally the ones that have already gotten into the wrestling business. Your Jesse Joneses, Amber O'Neills, your Ozzy's and Reina Del Rey's and disciplinarians, and just a number of them there that are really good at what they do. But I think most of them have to slow down and dumb down the work so that they can keep up with the people who aren't the ones that have wrestled elsewhere. But that's a whole different thing. So in any case, it is an ongoing thing that is happening with the Tongans that they have not, before I move on, they have not mentioned the name, because we don't want to start any false allegations here. They have not mentioned the name of the commentator of whom they speak. A few times, I believe, in the chat, there were people that were like, oh, it must be Stephen Dickey, and they dispelled that. So I think that we need to just get that off the rip right now. They did dispel that. It's like, no, it is not Stephen Dickey. So thank the Tonga Twins for that they were very clear that it is not this person, it's not Stephen Dickey. Other people surmised that, well, it shouldn't be Nigel Zane because he's been there for a while. All they said was that it was a male and there was a new commentator, and that was pretty much it. They did not divulge any names there. I do not expect them to divulge any names there at this point. Time will tell if they will ever get to a point that they start to peel back the layers and say some other stuff or let people know. But what we do know at this point is that the Island Dynasty is dead. In a while, I mean, it pretty much was dying to death once Leia McCoy left. Now the twins have left, so unless they're just going to go out of their way to go find some new Samoans or Tongans, I doubt that there's going to be another Island Dynasty. But then again, Wild does like to recycle things, so we might get one. Who knows? They might just go out specifically, look, we got to find some more Samoans. That sounds like something they might do. God damn, I hope they don't. But there we have it. That is where they are. The link should be in the description of this video. If not on the video itself, go listen to it. Check them out. Like I said, it is an emotional unveiling by them. I do not perceive them as trying to act to garner some sort of sympathy and whatnot. And I know there's some people out there who just did not want to believe them. I read a couple of comments, but maybe not as nice as they could have been about the Tonga twins. But I will remain on this line because one thing is true does not make the other one false. The WoW roster would probably benefit from having ironed all this stuff out. I doubt that is going to happen. Management always, in wrestling, always tends to have a very good job of keeping the roster divided in cases like this. I don't expect it to change. I would just say they would probably be who of them if they could sit down and talk this thing out and get this stuff going. And also, Jeannie Buss should be there. I doubt that this will ever take place. Also, I don't think this is going to happen either. But Jeannie Buss should be there. Whatever is going on with WoW right now in their management, in the locker room, or whatever, disdain or accusations, whether it's true or not, Jeannie Buss should be there and assessing that situation. If it is going to be this case of WoW is female empowerment and this, that, and the other, if there's a hint of some guy that's in there that's telling them, well, you do it what I say do, otherwise I'm going to get you fired and I'm untouchable and this, that, and the other, then that should be addressed. If it is not going to be addressed, then this is going to happen again. If it's just going to be swept under the rug, if it's just going to be a case of, oh, they don't know what they're talking about and they're just jealous or they're trying to shut everybody down or this, that, and the other, yeah, that might be. They might have did that hashtag FWow out of absolute anger and resentment. That is absolutely possible. But if that is the case, and it was just done out of resentment, you got nothing to lose by checking into that, by doing an internal investigation, by looking it over. If they were as boisterous and loud and bullying as has been claimed, I'm sure somebody will speak up about it. If someone else there has had encounters with this individual on the opposite side of the spectrum, will they speak up about it? That's what's going to be the real tell right there. Will somebody else, if this is taking place, and I stress if this is taking place, will somebody else have the guts to speak up and say, hey, look, no, this is not just them. I had to deal with this knucklehead too. Who knows? Who knows? They now join a list of people who have walked in and walked out of the company, and it would be different for me if there was just one person, but there does come a point where it's like, there's got to be some smoke to that fire as to why some have left. Not saying everybody was abused or something like that, but I'm sure they have their reasons. Joining the list of the departed from the company, joining the list of Wrecking Ball, Amber Rodriguez, Jennifer Gen Z Flores, Malaya Hosaka, Randy Rara, Razor, Mesmera, Robbie Rocket, Glitch the Gamer. These are all people who have not returned. And that is to say nothing of the ones that were there the previous seasons. Your Kira Hogan's, your Jessica Havoc's, your Sassy Massey or Alicia Edwards, Diamantes, and so on and so forth. Again, I will not say that they all had the same reasons for leaving. Some of them might have just, time just ran out and like, well, I'm doing something else. Don't need to go back. But there is something to be said for, the persons that left and have not mentioned one way or the other the reasons why. Except for one. There's one person that said something about it on her Twitch channel. Did not come off very nice to WoW, or at least certain persons in the upper echelon of management. And I'll leave it at that. So I believe that is the entirety of the news, views, and updates. We've got some recaps there and got some nice audio bites. And I think now is the time that we can go and move on to the actual show review. So, you know how this works. We're going to take a brief pause, and then we'll come back. It will be review time for WoW. All right, folks, we are back, and it is time to get into the review of the show. Hopefully, you will stick with me throughout this entire review, and it will be a nicer thing to deal with than the backstage drama that's been going on with WoW, at least currently. However, I don't know if I can give you if I can make that promise, because some of this stuff just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm sure you're going to hear that as I continue on. So let us start. Here is the slate for this episode. It is WoW episode season 237, chronological number 89. The air date May the 25th. The title, Contracts and Chaos. The show opens up with the commentators recapping the match between Abilene Maverick and Santana Garrett. This transitions into excitement for the Freedom match. I already didn't like the name of this match. And quite honestly, I could have cared less about this match. I know there was people like, oh yeah, it was a great match. It was wonderful. I'm glad you got your free. I did not care about this at all. At all. This was a horrible, horrible, horrible angle. And I wish I could see the person who would defend that this made some kind of sense. The one thing that they did do is that they did move themselves as far away from recapping this entire angle as they could. But the idea that WoW would pronounce this as some sort of epic encounter is just absurd. It was bad from start to finish. And we're not talking about the match. The matches were fine. And if you only look at the match in and of itself, there's nothing to really be like, oh, well, this is awful. It did okay. But when you take into account everything that the path that they took to get to this was just crap. And it immediately makes me not like the match. So let's start off with that. First off, Coach Campanelli comes out. And she cuts a promo, essentially explaining to the audience what's happening and why Top Tier is in there. And the reason being that Dave McClain barred them from ringside. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter because she can win anyway. So let's stop right there. The first thing I thought was like, okay, so you had the Beast who ran around trying everything under the sun to try to earn some sort of title opportunity to get the match that she wanted, which apparently could not happen instantaneously. But here, David McLane is able to bar Top Tier from ringside immediately, or somewhere in the back. I mean, without any rhyme or reason, just like, all right, well, they're barred. When any other time, it didn't really make a difference. Or they would just leave them in the back on their own. I was like, so that's McLane's powers to level the playing field seemingly come and go, or his ability to make a match seems to come and go. And this is one of those moments where it just came and he's like, all right, well, you're doing this. Now, he didn't say that, of course. This is Campanelli on the microphone explaining everything. Not only did this come off as weak when you look at the entirety of the angle that led to this, like they didn't even give me a reason to care that she was fighting for her freedom. It's not like Campanelli was mean to her or the rest of the Top Tier was mean to her constantly. Yeah, there might have been a push or they might have yelled at her aggressively or something like that, but that was pretty much it. When you look at this whole thing, I mean, let's go back. Ariel Sky was a replacement for Randy Rara, and she was treated like a dimwit then. And she stuck by Coach Campanelli. We fast forward to the trios tournament, which was an awful tournament. Every round had a different incarnation of team spirit. And then we get to the finals where she benches, she being Campanelli, every member of Team Spirit in favor of her new team, which would eventually become Top Tier. At the end of which, I bashed this little knucklehead in the head, in the back with a trophy and stomp her out on television after verbally down-dressing her. We follow that up with Ariel Sky looking like she's, had enough when she tears the picture. And then following that, she shows up in Coach's locker room, groveling at her feet, essentially, and begging for her forgiveness as the abuse survivor that she is. Ariel Sky, as a character, should not ever be married. Now, I ain't talking about the person that's portraying the thing, but the persona, the character Ariel Sky, is like an abuse victim waiting to happen. Like I said when I talked about this the first time, she may as well have just got up on screen and said, I'm sorry, I let my face get in the way of your feet and your fists. My bad. I apologize. So she goes in there and she begs. I will never forget that line. I want to continue to work hard for you. So this fool that got beaten up on TV, I want to continue to work hard for you. And Campanelli gave her that. Okay, fine. You win, you're part of Top Tier. If you lose, you're your water girl. She lost, and not only did she lose, but she lost clean. She lost fair and square. Campanelli didn't even have to cheat to do it. And what did they make her do? She was just a water girl. It's not like it was code for being my slave. Carry the bags and do this, that, and the other. Clean my locker room, sweep my house out or wash my car. They didn't make her do anything that would make you believe that, okay, this is horrible that this is happening to this girl. She literally was just a water girl. Walking out with a bucket, not even a bucket of water, just a bucket, towels, and a few wild water bottles. So we do that a few times. She does not seem like she is all that offended by being the water girl. In fact, she aided them twice. So we get to where she finally has the guts. Like, oh no, coach, I've been your water girl for a month. For 30 days, I've had enough. Like all of a sudden now is 30 days, so that's just one day too far. And instantaneously, Coach Campanelli just randomly offers her, well, if you want to get out of being our water girl, then just wrestle me in a match. And if you win, you're free. I was like, what? So let's have a life lesson here. That is not how gambling works. And that's what this was. It was her gambling with her career. That is not how that works. Go sit at a table and play in cards or gamble with anybody and lose your car, let's say. Do you really think that they're going to turn around because you ask, like, all right, well, if you just beat me in this hand, then you can get your car back? Or at least, do you think they're going to do that without you putting up some other collateral? No, of course not. And there was none of that. I could see if Campanella said, okay, fine. You want to get out of this, then get something else that you can put up in your career here at WOW. I mean, that would have put some heat on the thing right there. And I'm thinking about that off the top of my head. To like, just bring your contract out here. We'll set it on the table at the commentator booth. And the second that I beat you, I'm going to walk out there and I'm going to rip this contract up in front of your face. And not only will you not be able to wrestle in WOW, we know you're going to quit wrestling altogether. So you'll be out of this business for good. Nope. None of that. It was just, I'll give you a shot. Which may be the dumbest thing that Coach Campanelli did. Like, for whatever reason, she just decided to give her some sort of shot at the title just because. Not the title, I'm sorry. It was a shot at her freedom just because. So again, here we are. And we had this match that just had absolutely no heat on it whatsoever. There's portions in the match that I was perfectly fine with. The first segment, not so much. It was Campanelli, I guess, playing mind games. She gets out of the ring, runs away from Ariel Sky, gets back in, tries to take a shot at her, shoots off into the turnbuckles. Ariel Sky hops over the back of her, and then when she does, she sits down in the middle of the ring and waits for her spot for Coach Campanelli to come over there and take a kick at her so she can duck and get a roll up. This match was not anything that any other match that they would do would have. Except for they looked like they wanted to apply a concussion / knockout spot in here, assumably because, well, we had to do it before. We can get some sympathy off of this. Because there's one or two things that happened here. Either they did that for the reasons that I just said. Like, hey, we can just do this and get some kind of quick sympathy, which they didn't get out of me because it didn't look like it was an accident. Or if it was legitimate, then she shouldn't be there. If somebody's going to email or tell me, well, no, that actually happened. She slipped and she fell and she hit her head, then she shouldn't be there. She shouldn't be doing this. She should be training. She should be in somebody's high school gym somewhere. She should be on an indie show where she can make these kind of mistakes and not look like an idiot on national television. So they have this spot. Ariel Sky basically spikes herself into the mat. Coach Campanelli is walking around. The referee is checking her. Steinberg is checking her. Sky gets out and she goes and has to get a sip of water. What did she bring this bucket of water out there for anyway? She's fighting for her freedom to not be the water girl. So why is she carrying this? So she gets out, she gets the water, and that, I guess, was all she needed, just a little swig of water, and she's back into the game. So she gets in there, and she's wrestling against Campanelli. All the stuff that takes place in the middle of this is unimportant. So we will just skip past. There's a couple of times that Ariel Sky does the cartwheels and whatnot to get her move in. I said in one of her earlier matches, it's like she's contractually obligated to show that she's a gymnast of some sort, and she had to do some sort of cartwheel and or flip into some move. There's only one of them that she did here that I felt, okay, that one was a good one. Where she takes Campanelli out of the corner. She comes back and it wasn't a cartwheel. It was like a forward flip into a clothesline. But the timing on that forward flip into the clothesline I thought was really good. I was like, okay, well, that looks like it was organic to the situation. Rather than let me just flip because I need to do a flip. And that's how it generally comes off. But here it was, it was a clothesline, and Campanelli goes down. Ariel Sky is able to get her with a cartwheel going forward into a clothesline. I thought that was good. But then she pushed it one step too far and had to do another one, so she do a drop kick or whatever the heck. So let's get towards the end of this. It ultimately comes down to Ariel Sky having to bend the rules in order so she can get the win over her opposition. I am not opposed to the babyface cheating the heel, provided that the heel has done it to the babyface enough to justify the cheat. In this particular instance, it was not justified. Campanelli has beaten her pretty much clean as a whistle. Even if she was aggressive, she has beaten her. And this did not do anything to change that. This is kind of like what I saw at Americana. It's like the heels don't need to cheat the baby faces in the Wild universe. The baby faces have to cheat the heel because they're not good enough to be able to beat them in a one-on-one contest, which I thought would be in the reverse. But that does not appear to be the case here. So Campanelli loses after Ariel Sky goes out, gets some water out of the bottle, squirts her in the eyes. Campanelli gets up like, oh, I can't see. And then she gets rolled up 1, 2, 3. That's it. Ariel Sky wins her freedom back from nothing. I mean, yeah, she's nothing there was happening that she needed to be winning her freedom back in the first place, but there we are. So after this takes place, Campanelli is seething over in the corner. She blows the whistle, and Top Tier comes out and attacks Ariel Sky at Coach's command. The Mother Truckers come in to save Sky, and they run Top Tier off. Holly Swag cuts a promo on Top Tier, and they put on their best super duper southern drawl to accommodate being the Mother Truckers. This looks like it is a transition of issues between Top Tier and the Mother Truckers, so maybe this will push off into a tag team rivalry. Possibly Top Tier will win the titles. Who knows? But the segment closes with David McClain on the microphone shouting about how Ariel Sky's earned her freedom and yelling into them like, oh, Jesus, you're free, Ariel Sky, don't blow it, and whatever the LC says. I hated this. So I know some people loved. I hated this segment because this is just a stupid angle overall, and I could not get myself into it. Did not care. It was just a waste of airtime. Wild acts like they're afraid to let their heels be mean. At the very least, they could have had Coach Campanelli and the rest of Top Tier talk down to Ariel Sky like she was a knucklehead or something. They couldn't even do that. I wrote down the example because I saw like that same evening an episode of American Housewife, and with like 3 minutes, they established that one of these women here is a jerk. How? Because she had an assistant that she was next to, and she was making her do all kinds of menial tasks. Chloe Brown Mueller and her assistant that she had on there. I forget this is Maria. And it didn't take them goddamn 2-3 minutes to show that this woman on this show, Chloe Brown Mueller, is a absolute jerk when it comes to her assistant. Why couldn't WoW do that? Why? Like, there's no good justified reason that I can think of that they would not or could not have done it. Even if it didn't have to be a backstage vignette, it could have been right there in the ring. They could have had her do some menial thing right there in front of the people so they could see it. And I knew that crowd was going to cheer and yell regardless of what took place because that's what they do. That's what they're conditioned for that. But how hard would it have been? I don't understand it. Next segment is the disciplinarian with Samantha Smart taking on G.I. Jane. Smart opens this up with a promo also. Not mad at the promos. It's decent, and it was aimed at a specific person, which they normally do not do. I do like this promo by Samantha Smart. It was probably workshopped and written out ahead of time, but I do like the promo. Jane comes out, and they start off their little beef. I assume that this is a conclusion of the G.I. Jane against IQ Superior feud. I can only assume that because it came seemingly out of nowhere. But this also seemed like this could be the end of maybe the disciplinarian. I had read a couple of times from a couple of people that she had put in her notice and that she was not going to be returning to WoW. Some people posted that she put that on Twitter some time ago. I still haven't found it, but in fairness to the situation, I also haven't gone out of my way to look. But I don't know if this was manufactured or organic. But the crowd did begin to chant for G.I. Jane. If this were an organic chant, that would probably be every reason that I need to try to do something with her if she's getting that kind of reaction out of the audience. Now, that's, of course, a whole different thing. I doubt that they'll get anywhere with that. I doubt they'll do anything with it, but, just an observation. Jane still wrestles very aggressively. No, she is not super polished, but much like Chainsaw, the effort is there. And I appreciate the effort that G.I. Jane has done and put into it. She seems to grasp it a little better than most in some cases, but she still gets off track a little bit. But by and large, she tends to deliver the goods. And her not being a full-on polished wrestler does not work against her just because of the G.I. Jane gimmick. The disciplinarian works well with her. Neither one of them looked like they were in a straight-up advantage over the other. There was no real size differential that you could point at, but like, oh, well, this person should be bigger and stronger. In fact, if anything, I would say maybe the disciplinarian might be slightly bigger. And they had a point in this match where the greenness of Jane did come in, where the disciplinarian was trying to put the boots to her in the corner. And the disciplinarian has to turn her around so that she could get her in position because Jane wasn't doing it. But yeah, she had it in the corner. She tried to put it in there. Jane wasn't turning, so she had to turn it around. No big deal there. Sometimes you got to walk them through, and she did it. But getting towards the end of the match, the finish that took place here, when Jane starts to take advantage of the situation and she starts getting a little bit of a lead here. Well, before we get to that, I do have to make one note about Samantha Smart and her cheating. I don't know why they tend to do this. It just seems weird to me. There's a point in the match where Jane is draped over the second rope, and Samantha Smart grabs the wrist of G.I. Jane to choke Samantha, not choke Samantha Smart. Smart grabs the wrist of Jane to choke Jane on the second rope, rather than reaching behind the back of the neck and the head and pulling her down over the ropes. I don't know why they do that. She's not the only person that does, like, grab the wrist and pull. it doesn't come off like a choke to me when you're doing that. It just looks like you're just grabbing the wrist and playing around. As much as they try to sell it, it just seems a bit off. But anyhow, like I said, that's neither here nor that. So the disciplinarian was in somewhat of control until Jane was able to mount her comeback. This followed the double clothesline spot that they had in the ring. Jane was able to get the disciplinarian up in some short arm clotheslines, like clothesline, drop on the ground, yank her back up, drop her again with a clothesline. The commentator was getting a little bit of ahead of that. It was like, well, she likes to do it 3 times. Well, she only did it twice. That happens. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves with commentary. She goes for the cover following the body slam. G.I. Jane decides that a good idea would be to go up to the second rope. Here's where I think there was a little bit of a botch, but Jane tried to sell it. Samantha Smart sees G.I. Jane going up to the second rope. She takes the yardstick. She hits her what looks to be in the back and possibly on the hand when she's up there. But Jane is having to sell the head like she got knocked out. It only looked like she popped her in the hand. And I'm not saying that getting popped in the hand with a yardstick wouldn't hurt, but it doesn't look like that would keep you dazed enough for you to get caught up in a move by your opponent. But that's what happened. She gets hit in the hand like it pops her knuckles. Jane's having to sell for her head and being kind of staggered and confused until the disciplinarian comes over there and she hoists her up on her shoulders, puts her in a TKO, and then that's it. Jane is down for the 3 count. 1, 2, 3. One time the disciplinarian is able to score a win out of who knows how long. And is it me, but it looks like she was emotional after this match. And again, I don't know if this is her farewell match. I don't know if this is her way out of the door or whether something else was going on, but it looked like just for a moment, the disciplinarian might have been a little caught up in her emotions there. Wiped her eyes and then stood victorious in the ring. This was a good match. And actually, I was more into this than I was the Freedom match. Maybe because there was no expectations on this at all. But I was more into this than the previous match because there was no stupidity attached to it. It was just a match. The next match, Goldie Collins versus Pep Riley. The commentator, Zane, said Animal Instinct is enjoying a successful tag team run. And I wrote, how? They've tagged up twice and they lost twice. How is that successful? It'd been different if they had a couple of wins or maybe even went to a draw with the champions. But they had 2 matches together, and both of those matches they lost. What is successful about that? And why are they even advertising Animal Instinct? Why is Goldie Collins even going to a singles match? Which one are we going to do? Is it going to be the singles match, or are we going to go into tag teams? Because at this point, I think they need to pick a lane and stick to it. They don't need to have her bopping back and forth right now. Especially if they're trying to establish Animal Instinct. If they're not, then just break them up. I mean, we all knew that team was coming eventually. But I don't really see any purpose in Animal Instinct. They have not shown that they have any value as a team other than to go up there and get beat. And speaking of getting beat, Pep Riley came out. I have noted that Pep Riley is on this roster largely to get thrown around and take the bumps, and this match did nothing to dissuade me from that opinion. Now, that's not to say it was a bad match, because somebody's got to do the job. And this went a much further way to make Goldie Collins look like something than anything else that she's done up until this point. This was a squash. This was a squash match with was going to say a name. It's not like Pep Riley's a big name, but somebody that could get thrown around and make the opposing opposition and offense look good. Because she did do that. She made the offense that Collins put on her look good. Why? Because she's so tiny and easy to be thrown around and hoisted up and just chucked to the side like it was just a sack of potatoes or something. The match is not long. It's probably about 2.5, 3 minutes at best. So it's not something that would really hurt you to go check out. But like I said, it's a squash match. You're not gaining anything off of it. And you can see such a huge size difference between Collins and Pep Riley. Now, I also have to say, because there has been someone who has made note that Collins is a talent that could be utilized and be a star. And I hadn't seen it. Up until this point. This is probably the closest that we've got to her looking like that potential exists. Goldie Collins in this match seemed to be a little bit more serious than what she normally was. Up until now, as she's almost been just full-on comedy, especially when she does an interview or they show her video, the entrance video that she's got where they got the footage of the dog and everything like that. This, I did not see any of that. This was an entirely different presentation. Maybe I missed the opening video. I do not recall seeing the video screen and them showing the dog and whatnot. So she had a little bit of a more serious look presented to her in this match, if nothing else. And she got to show some dominance. She got to show that she could throw this little girl around and that she could beat her up anytime that she pretty much felt like it. I don't really understand why Pep Riley is running around in this cheerleading outfit if Team Spirit is done. I mean, you don't need two different cheerleaders on the roster if we're not going to have the cheer squad tag team in there. Just have her do something else. Just pick another name, shed the cheerleading thing, and be finished. Now, there are points in the match where it looks like there was some hesitation or something was off or something like that, especially when Pep Riley was revving back up and going to the other corner to give Goldie Collins a shot. And she charges in and catches the knee off of Collins. But aside from that, I mean, the match is fine. So Collins catches her in the knee when she charges in, and she hooks her up into a suplex and gets her over with ease. And once she gets past that and the failure of that pin, she goes for what is termed as a corkscrew suplex. I don't know if that's the thing that she's going to want to use as a finish, because I don't know if she can apply that to everybody, but in this case it looked good because she could apply it to Pep Riley. And she did, and she won. Corkscrew suplex, 1, 2, 3. Pep Riley's losing streak continues. And Collins gets on the mic and she cuts a promo after the match. And she actually delivered a pretty good promo. And she gave that closing line with some conviction. She gave the line, I'm Goldie Collins and I'm the best in show. I was like, oh, all right. And she delivered it with some oomph. The only thing that I had that works against me with the promo that finished up here is I don't know if the best in show is the moniker that I would want to go with, but that's just me, because best in show, that's a title that your dogs win, not the person. Now I'm sure WoW was going to view that differently, like, oh no, it's fine, it's just a nice name or what have you. But much like they allowed the change of Abilene Maverick to be from the governor's daughter to something a little bit more universal and cool like the VIP, I would make that suggestion here to get her off of being the best in show. She's been referred to as the gold standard here. Go with that. Gold standard has a better ring to it than the best in show, unless we are going to make Goldie Collins a legitimate dog. And I'm sure she does not want to be a female in a wrestling company referred to as a dog, for obvious reasons. So she gives that, she delivers the promo, and her promo is a lot less comedic and more serious at the end. I hope that she can stick to that and they can get rid of all the comedy nonsense that is around her. And maybe, just maybe, they will be able to rehabilitate this woman into being something worthwhile. The next segment is, now why did I have it? Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, Goldie seems a little bit directionless. That was my other note. I say that because of the singles and the tag thing. I was like, okay, what are they doing? Is she going after the tag titles with Katarina Jinx, or is she going to go after her singles aspirations? But she just comes off as directionless right now. It's just, everybody can't have a direction. Everybody can't have a focal point, I guess. But it would be nice to know that she had something that she was aiming for. And she hasn't gotten that yet. Maybe they'll unveil that a little bit later on. But as of right now, there's no general direction for Collins to be pointed in. The next segment was a ad for the contract signing, which featured David McLane walking in. My first comment there was why? Why are they showing David McLane in this promotional video for a contract signing? Isn't the contract signing about the talent? He shouldn't even have a spotlight on him at this point. It should just be, let's get these two over and get the issues that they have over. Whoever's there standing holding the microphone is irrelevant. David McLane or not. But they had him in there and they had to show it, and then they showed the Beast and Abilene Maverick. And then we go to the following segment, which is the contract signing itself. McLane has to host a segment, of course. And this is presented as Abilene Maverick has been dodging the Beast for weeks for her rematch. I don't know if this is presented well. In fact, I would go the extra mile and say this entire angle that Abilene and the Beast are doing feels to me like a rehash of what took place between the Beast and Tessa Blanchard. Almost beat for beat. Tessa Blanchard was the champion. She has the Beast breathing down her throat or the back of her neck, whatever descriptive term you want to use. And rather than to face her, she starts giving title shots to everybody else, regardless of the fact that they're high ranking competitors and challengers. It's just anybody but the Beast, which is basically what happened here. So Tessa Blanchard would face off against Serpentina or not Reina Del Rey. She's Giselle Shaw now. I forget what name she went by when she was in WoW. But there was a couple of times, the Jungle Girl, there was a couple of times Tessa Blanchard would just take on anybody else under the sun rather than take on the Beast, regardless of how tough they were. Sounds familiar. Regardless of how tough they were, Abilene Maverick seems to be doing the same thing. The only difference there was that she took on Americana, and she was supposed to be a walkover, and she wasn't. Which reminds me, I don't think I mentioned the whole reason that I brought Tessa Blanchard up to begin with. At the beginning of this thing, when I said that she was involved in WoW, and they brought her in regardless of the heat that she had, and that they doubled down on her, and that they did this. And the other thing is her, I said earlier, and I didn't get to it, that I'm not defending her, but one of the things that they reported her as being bad at or having a problem with was yelling at one Samantha Sage, who turned into Americana. But I will just say this. If she is delivering lines in practice and rehearsal with as much wooden delivery as she has learned to do on the show, then yes, I would absolutely be frustrated with that. I would absolutely be like, can you get this right, please? It would be upsetting. And I know it would be upsetting. And I will repeat, I'm not saying that I would agree with Tessa Blanchard or that I'm giving her an out or that I'm trying to say, well, you know, she had good cause for it. I'm just saying I understand. And I'll leave it at that. So we had the signing segment, which he called an autograph segment, which whatever. So they come out. David McLane is hosting this from start to finish, and these two said nothing. Nothing happened here. This was just two participants who came out to sign some papers, and then that was it. They didn't say one word to each other. I don't even know why this segment was necessary. It could have just happened in the back. He could have just showed a piece of paper saying we got it signed if that were the case. But this was nothing. Didn't do anything. They didn't say anything. It was just sign these papers. All right, guys, this was David McLane's segment. That's what it came down to. This was his segment. Regardless of who else was in it, they advertised it with him in it when they did the whole video wall and him walking up in his suit and his tuxedo and whatnot. And then he's in the ring. And he does this. Like I said, this was his segment. The Beast and Abilene Maverick were secondary to this. It was about him. And him delivering the news. That's what this segment was about. And that's what he did. They came out. Both were at the table. They had a table set up in the ring. They had the Beast sign first, and she nearly, not even nearly, she tore the paper. she signed on the paper so hard that she just dragged the pen across and just tore a hole in it, which I would imagine would nullify the contract if you did that in real life. And then after that, we've got Abilene Maverick, and she signs hers, and then Dave McLane is like ecstatic. Yay, we got it signed. The next week is going to be a title match. I don't know if I really was all that concerned about this title match either, because quite honestly, it just felt like a foregone conclusion that the Beast was gonna get it. And I really have not had any other reasons to be concerned with or care about the Beast. Or for that matter, Abilene Maverick retaining. I've not gotten any reasons to care about that. Other than this, just, Beast is the babyface and she should win. That's pretty much all I know. So that happened. We move on. Like I said, nothing important now. Next segment. Princess Ozzy and Tormenta versus Los Banditas, and this is just basically an ad for the main event. I wrote down Tormenta defending the honor of Sophia Lopez, and I put question mark. It's like, why is this happening? What is she defending the honor of Sophia Lopez for? Now, before I even go any further, in fairness to this situation, I will say when I got the press release for this following week, they do follow up on it. I still do not agree that it was done well. I stand by that. I do not think that this alleged babyface turn that Lopez is in was done well, but I feel like I understand why they started doing it. But the next episode will really make that clear. So, Wild shows hands in the next segment, and we'll talk about just a close-up of hands, because they come out of this ad and they go to this. It's a close-up of hands tying around door handles. Now, these are double doors, the kind of double doors you have that are leading like into a hallway. They don't usually go to someone's dressing room, but we're gonna allot for TV here. So these hands are tying a bandana around these two push door, handles. And again, we can't see anything else other than maybe their wrists and their hands and the bandana. And then you hear Zane's like, is that Jesse Jones locking Americana's door? And I almost blew a gasket. I was like, how would he know that this is Jesse Jones just based off of their hands, because there's a bandana being tied around there? Much less, how would you know that it's Americana's door? It's nowhere near a door. I mean, it's not showing a sign or anything like that to allow you to think that this is going to anybody's door in particular. So how did he come to this conclusion? But he came to the conclusion because that's the conclusion that he was supposed to come to. And and that's just how they work that in. I have no idea where this is going. But it was the first thing I said. Like, how would he know that this is happening the way that this is Jesse Jones, that it's Americana's door, aside from the fact that it's already written and he's supposed to know it? So this allegedly is showing why Americana was unable to get out of a room or something like that. And I don't even know if a bandana would be strong enough to hold this thing down, but we will give some concessions for television and its logic. So I don't know why anybody would use a bandana to do that. If I was going to do that, I would just go to the Home Depot and buy a chain and a lock. But I guess a chain and a lock does not exist in WoW's budget. Next segment, Lopez comes back and she goes directly to the commentating booth. My next question there was, is Lopez a babyface now? And then we go into the main event. Now, bear in mind, the reason that I say that, regardless of what they're doing with Sophia Lopez right now, the reason I say that this is not done well or poorly executed is because you wouldn't know anything about Tormenta defending her. We recap this, we see Tormenta and Las Banditas together. They lose in the match that they lost, and they're having a big ticket. Sophia Lopez gets in the ring and she's basically yelling at her girls. And then Angel Rose, I believe it was Angel Rose, she slapped her. Now, the way that came off, it came off like, okay, this woman is tired of taking the verbal abuse and smacked her in the face for it. Especially considering that Sophia Lopez has been a heel since the moment that she got there. So it's hard to surmise that was supposed to be the other way around without any sort of context or anybody getting on the microphone or saying anything or doing anything. So that's where we are with that. That smack in the face was allegedly supposed to be a smack with no, not repercussion, but no instigation. It was supposed to just be a slap where she wasn't instigated to do it. She just did it because she's being mean. That's what it's supposed to have been. And now Tormenta is supposed to step up and defend the honor of Sophia Lopez along with her new friend, Princess Ozzy. So I think it's now official that Ozzy has converted Tormenta to being babyface, and potentially Sophia Lopez is now babyface. The one thing I can say about Ozzy and Tormenta is that they do look good together. They both carry a superstar look. The downside is that Tormenta has been looked at and treated like such secondary fodder, like she's lost to everybody every which way that she could possibly lose. And now I am supposed to take her seriously as a top girl. I just did not see this. And again, why would fans care that this is for Sophia Lopez's honor? Why would they care about this? If anything, the first match here should have been the main event, quite possibly, and this one should have been the start of the show. Now, it also should be said that this match, and I've used this term a couple of times, and I will use it now. This match was better than it had any right to be. This is where it makes me feel like, you know what, man, I wish that WoW had taken care of Los Banditas from the get-go instead of having them job out to every team that they cross paths with to make me believe that they had a chance of winning. But I could not get it in my mind that they were going to win. I was like, that's not going to happen. They're not winning this match. Now, the match is good, but no, they weren't going to win, and we knew they were going to win. It started off with Tormenta trying to get a hold of Sanchez. Sanchez tags out, puts in Angel Rose. Angel Rose wants all of Tormenta, but Tormenta's like, nah, I'm saving it for Sanchez. She tags out, Ozzy comes in, and then Sanchez comes in. And they're like, all right, look at this. So we've established that Sanchez doesn't want any part of Tormenta. So I'm assuming that my memory might have been off and that Sanchez might have been the one to slap Sofia Lopez opposed to Angel Rose. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. So we have the baby faces, Ozzy and Tormenta, taking on Los Banditas, the heels. And again, you know, the match in and of itself was fine. With the exception of maybe one big move there, I thought everything was moving relatively smoothly. That one big move would be the lung blower combination or cold breaker, some people call it. Combination that Ozzy and Tormenta did to catch Angel Rose. The reason that I didn't like it because it made Angel Rose have to wait for them to get ready in order to apply the move. But other than that, they really stuck to, you know, trying to be a solid tag team. And the Banditas look good, but they just had this loss already written in the stars, and it's just hard for me to look at this and be like, I wonder who's going to take it, especially when overall, first of this version of the Banditas, I don't think it's won yet. If you include the original version of the Banditas, they probably have won maybe 3 times over the 2 years that they've been there, or whatever the case may be. So it's very difficult to look at this and just be like, oh yeah, I get it. This is what they're supposed to be, and this is how it's supposed to go. So anyhow, and then there's a point in the match where Ozzy pretty much has to ignore the fact that she charged into the ring to save her partner, where she just stopped and went back. Like the ref didn't stop her. He didn't force her back into the corner. And this referee I like. He usually seems to do a good job. Everybody here seems to have, you know, relatively good chemistry. They were working hard. They were trying their best. Everything was nice and grounded. Nothing was over the top or super duper cartoony. It was an easy match to enjoy. And again, I am not going to sit there and say that it was perfect, because it could have used a better setup. But this is the reasons why I say this match was better than it had any right to be. Because on its own, it survived bad booking to make this feasible. So anyway, the heat in the match is largely put on Princess Ozzy. Ozzy's able to make the tag. Tormenta comes in, and Tormenta gets Angel Rose up in like a reverse. I guess, yeah, it would be a reverse torture rack. And when she has her up in that, Sanchez comes in to try to make the save. But then Tormenta uses Angel Rose's body while she's up on her shoulders as a ram of sorts and just nails Rose's partner. Tormenta spins around, Spikes rolls on the ground, which gives Princess Ozzy the opening to come out the top rope for her big splash. She hits the big splash, and then that's it. 1, 2, 3, they win. And the Banditas go down in defeat like they always go down in defeat. So the babyfaces are happy. They're cheering. They got the big stellar win, I guess, over the Las Banditas. And all is right in the world, and Sophia Lopez has got her revenge, proxy of Tormenta and Princess Ozzy. This, in spite of poor booking and storytelling, was still enjoyable. This is an interesting match. And it was a fun match. But it also has to be noted that they didn't have shortcuts, but they didn't have the best storytelling leading into this environment. The storytelling was a bit off. But that's okay. We'll assume that they will get out of this. But I do have one or two questions because of this match. One, is Princess Ozzy still in a feud with Gambino and Reina Del Rey? Is that blown off, or is this the beginning of something else? Is Tormenta going to continue on with Ozzy as a permanent function tag team? I mean, it's hard to know where they're going with some of this sometimes. Especially when they're putting these shows together out of weeks, not days of hooking up the show, getting it together, editing, all that good stuff. But the show overall, just to do a recap here, I was really struggling to find a good grade that I could give it, because I honestly did not, and I don't want to be negative on WoW all the time. It just when they do this, it makes it so hard for me. The first match, like I said, I could care less about. Second match, better than it should have been. Third match, the squash match, but good. And I hope Collins continues on in some sort of serious role to make me believe that she could do something better than this. This match, better than what the angle dictated. Is now down to Sophia Lopez and where they're going to go with that. I have an idea, but we're going to let that play out over the course of the next episode. This could largely be considered a forgettable show if not for the efforts of Las Banditas, Princess Ozzy, Tormenta, and Jane and the Disciplinarian, in my opinion. There was no amount of effort that could have overcome the bad storyline in their first match. That just wasn't happening. No amount of it could fix that. I know that their fans are like, yeah, this is great. But, I've said this in previous podcasts as well. WoW may want to steer away from those comments as the sign that we've done it right, because there are oftentimes that they just say it just to say it. So anyhow, that would be the full-on review of WoW. Now, what we have here is the upcoming edition of WoW as I am recording this. And they have some interesting things that are laid up around the corner for this new episode. And here is your time. If you don't want to know, because let me be honest, I spoiled some of this for myself. But if you don't want to know, this is your time to move ahead and skip to the next segment. You have been warned. So here's our preview. As of this recording, the next episode would be 238. The title would be True Courage. The chronological number would be 90. They have made it to 90. Holy crap. And this is the preview that they have waiting for you. It is the high-flying debut of the Bohemian beauty Sierra Breeze as she must battle Penelope Pink. Sierra Breeze, isn't that a drink? I mean, I know that just stopped me in my tracks there as I was reading that, but I was like, isn't Sierra Breeze a drink? What, I don't know if that's the name they want to use. But anyway, will Lana Star help crush Sierra's dreams of stardom? We hear a special message from an emotional Sophia Lopez. The Mighty Mites, Sugar and Spice, partner with Bully Buster Keita Rush to fight the devious Brat Pack. Here we go with that again. Why can't they just get rid of the third person and just let it just be Sugar and Spice versus BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni? Why do we have to include a third party? And they just swapped out one Bully Buster for the next. Anyhow, continuing on. And finally, in the match that's been building for weeks, the Beast has the chance to sink her teeth into the VIP Abilene Maverick. What's store for these two champions in the most dramatic WoW World Championship title match yet? I doubt that. I will wait until I can actually see this match take place, but none of this makes me excited to watch the show. None of it. I don't know who Sierra Breeze is, so that doesn't mean anything to me. The Mighty Mites and Keita Rush versus the Brat Pack might be interesting because I have faith in at least four of them. I just, and that's nothing against Keita Rush. I just don't think that it's necessary to have a third person on either side. And then we got the Beast. And what I would consider a foregone conclusion, and I'm not going to go any further than that, is just, did I really care? Like, the one chance they had to get me kind of emotionally invested in the match would have happened during that contract signing, and it didn't happen. It was just David McLean, and he is not the person to sell a match to me. I'm sorry, he's not. I know he's very aware of the direction that he wants to go as a booker or writer or whatever the case may be, producer, whatever title he has. I am certain that he is very aware of the direction that he is looking to have his company and his wrestlers go. But it would have done a world of more difference for me had this been a case of, all right, Beast, say your piece about what you want to do and what this title means and how you're going to get it back, etc., etc. And then Abilene Maverick, you respond, say your piece. What is this about? Why is it so important to you? So on and so forth. But, what do I know? So there it is. That would be the full-on review of WoW, and I'm, I need to take a look here because am I thinking of the right thing? Maybe I'm thinking of Sierra Mist. Because like that sounds like it is really close to a name that I've heard somebody use before. Much like G.I. Jane and Candy Crush, I just wait on the inevitable lawsuit. I'll put it that way. I don't think it's gonna bother anybody until it becomes a bigger deal. But I see that Sierra Breeze photography, there's Sierra Breeze on Instagram, and two different ones. There's a GitHub Sierra Breeze Enhanced. There's a couple of different Sierra Breezes that exist, and I guess until it gets to a point where it's a problem out of that individual or that company or energy drink or photography or whatever, until it becomes a problem with them, I guess they'll be able to just move on and take it for what it is. But there we have it, folks. That is the entirety of the review. That is WoW from top to bottom. WoW should be doing better. They've done this for months now, years now. WoW should be doing better, especially with these angles. Not the matches. They should be doing better with the angles. The angles suck. They are terrible. It is as if, and this is an example that I've used for Ghostbusters. You've seen that movie, Ghostbusters 2016. Ghostbusters Answer the Call. That's the name that we've applied to it, so people know what the difference was. But for those that don't know, it's the Ghostbusters that had the all-female cast. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, the movie is not bad. It's bad for a Ghostbusters movie. And there's a difference. Not a bad movie. It's bad for that. It is as if somebody came out of a cave or from another planet, never saw or heard of Ghostbusters as a movie or an entity whatsoever, and was asked to write a movie about it, write this script. And the only thing that the person told them was, there's about 4 people, pick whatever you want in the 4. They chase ghosts and it's funny. Go. And that's what they came up with. It is very surface level. That is what WoW is with their angles. It's as if somebody said, hey, you know what we should do? We should have a servitude angle. Without that person having seen or heard of what that is, and just like, oh, okay, well, we'll just have them lose. They'll be attached to them as a servant, and then we'll have them win 2 or 3 weeks later. And the people will love it, they should care, and whatever. And that's not to say that Ariel Sky facially couldn't get people to relate, because she did. Give her credit where it's due. She is able to relay sympathy. A lot of times she looks dazed and confused, but she's able to relay sympathy there to some level, to some degree, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to overlook how badly Ariel Sky had been utilized throughout this thing. And I find it very difficult to cheer for a wrestler who would go back groveling to the heel to let me please work for you. Like, you lost me the second as you did that. And I know I'm not the only one. And I know that the WoW's Faithful is never going to see that. The WoW's Faithful is not ever going to nitpick, or they're not even going to look at this like, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. They're not going to question it. But for the people that are just watching it because they like wrestling and they want some sense behind their wrestling, yeah, this would be terrible. And that's it, folks. That's it. That's the entirety of the show. I want to thank you for tuning in, as you have been for these last couple of weeks. It has been my honor to be able to present this stuff to you. And if you want to continue to support the show in its various formats, please like, share, subscribe, do the YouTube stuff if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're not, then you'll be catching this podcast on greater podcast platforms everywhere. I just found out that this podcast is on Audible. I didn't even know that. I just did a random search one day when I found out that they have podcasts on Audible. But there we are, and there it is, the WPN's Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. All you got to do, typically speaking, is type in WPN. And generally speaking, it pops up. But if for whatever reasons you are unable to do that and you still want to get a hold of the podcast, well, you go to WPNWrestling.com and you can find our centerpiece and our focal point for everything that we do. Everything is there on the website, the 24/7 stream of matches and other videos, some of which I produce, some are productions from elsewhere, but stuff that you would enjoy all the same. And the podcast Scroll down from the videos. Every podcast episode goes up there. All of them. Every single episode goes up there. And you can get that downloaded, and you can start the download so it will come directly to you whenever and however you like it when those podcasts go up. And I think that I have covered all the ground as far as what we do and what we have and what we're offering. And I think we have covered the review in its entirety. Hopefully the next episode will be more to my liking. Maybe they will surprise me, but time will tell. And on that note, let's close this thing out. And you know what? I didn't even get to the fact that they had Air Scott cut a little pseudo promo line at the end, which is a honk honk mother flippers. God, that was so awful. But I won't go back into that. So, folks, I appreciate it. Thank you again. And in closing, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.